Imagine a situation in which one day a populist political leader manages to become Britain's Prime Minister. He moves into number 10 and then about 9 months later, without any warning, one day a bunch of digging machines are seen driving up Downing Street itself. They immediately start knocking down number 11. Demolishing it in its entirety, without, as my late mother always liked to say, a by your leave. Unimaginable, right? I mean the bit about knocking down number 11, not the bit about the populist leader coming to power. Well, this week, that is exactly what has happened in Washington.
Some other dramatic video just into us, even live as we speak, as we're learning the whole East Wing of the White House, it is being demolished. It's being pulled down. Look at this. Crews tearing down that part of the building, originally built in the early 1900s.
This morning, Extreme Makeover White House edition. What was once the historic East Wing, now a growing pile of concrete and metal debris.
This morning, sources tell ABC News the entire East Wing of the White House is being torn down as soon as this weekend to make way for President Trump's massive new ballroom, which he now says will cost $300 million.
This is an interior shot of the ballroom. I think there'll be nothing like it. And it's being paid for 100% by me and some friends of mine, donors to it. The government's paying absolutely nothing.
There certainly will be nothing like it if those pictures are anything to go by, ripped from the pages of Versailles. If it's used for nothing else, the producers of Bridgerton might fancy renting it out for some of the ballroom scenes that are one of the hallmarks of that particular bodice-ripping TV drama. Now, if you had said to me even a week ago, the president is so confident in his own power that he can literally tear down part of the White House, a National Historic Preservation Site, without securing any permission, well, even Bridgerton's producers might have rejected that as a storyline too far. But we are where we are, with White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt batting away even the slightest call for transparency over the project.
The president had initially said that this project wouldn't interfere with or touch the current structure. Now he says to do this properly, he realized that the East Wing had to be demolished. This is the people's house. Why not inform the public of that change and when it was decided that the East Wing would have to be demolished?
Look, again, with any construction project, changes come, and we have informed all of you. We've been keeping you apprised of this project. We've shown you the renderings, and if you look at the renderings, it's very clear the East Wing was going to be modernized.
But modernized and tearing down are two different things.
Well, again, the plans changed when the president heard counsel from the architects and the construction companies who said that in order for this East Wing to be modern and beautiful for many, many years to come, for it to be a truly strong and stable structure, this phase 1 that we're now in was necessary.
Phase 1, you say? Who knows? Maybe phase 2 will see the trashing of the Lincoln bedroom or changing the Oval Office into a rectangle. At this point, he can do absolutely anything. And when you drill down and find out how he gets away with it, as in so many other areas of American life, you discover that the storied checks and balances of the country's hallowed Constitution are in fact hollow. Was he required to get planning permission? Well, it turns out that for the White House, that is merely a tradition that past presidents have all observed because they weren't cultural vandals. But if you elect one, there doesn't appear to be very much that anyone can do to stop him, which is, of course, a much larger metaphor for this presidency and Trump's personal determination to rule as an authoritarian who recognizes no constraints to his power.
Today, organizers say at least 7 million Americans took to the streets protesting what many called an abuse of power by President Trump. Here in New York City, police say 100,000 people turned out at multiple marches. They report no arrests.
The whole world is watching! No king, no king.
From coast to coast, nearly 7 million Americans, according to organizers, at No King's demonstration Saturday.
The rule of law is being destroyed.
The message is the Constitution of the United States is a wonderful document that matters.
Is it? Does it? The answer to those questions raised on CBS and NBC, they're very much currently in doubt as a president of the United States decides to build a glittering ballroom and commission a triumphalist arch, the Arc de Trump we told you about last week, in the middle of a government shutdown that is forcing some furloughed civil servants to turn to food banks because they are not getting paid. It's a shame Melania Trump's office in the East Wing has been demolished by her husband because she won't now be able to sit there and intone the phrase, "Let them eat cake."
Stay back! Stay back! Stay back! Hey! Stay back!
This was the American week when Donald Trump's thugs from ICE, his Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division, suddenly turned up on Canal Street in New York City and started pulling anyone with an ethnic appearance off the streets as possible candidates for deportation. NBC reported last night that in its rush to give hefty signing bonuses to thousands of new officers, standard procedures are being flouted by the White House, with new agents taken on without being vetted, fingerprinted or properly trained. The agency has found that some recruits failed drug tests, have criminal backgrounds and cannot meet some not very stringent physical requirements for the job. New Yorkers, of course, do not mess around and pursued Trump's agents on the streets, demanding their immediate withdrawal from Manhattan. The heavily armed, poorly trained, often nervous agents up against determined and furious demonstrators creates a tinderbox, which of course may be the intention as President Trump vows to flood Democrat-led cities all over the country with more ICE agents and troops. His intentions with regard to the war in Ukraine were very difficult to divine over the last 7 days. Just 1 week ago, President Trump was being romanced again by Vladimir Putin and announced that the two of them would meet in Budapest for another summit. There, Prime Minister Viktor Orban, friendly with both Trump and Putin but hostile towards Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, seemed keen to play his role brokering the dismemberment of Ukraine. And certainly the US leader on Air Force One last weekend appeared to be up for it.
They should stop right now at the battle lines, go home, stop killing people, and be done.
What do you think should happen with the Donbass region?
Let it be cut the way it is. It's cut up right now. I think 78% of the land is already taken by Russia. You leave it the way it is right now. They can negotiate something later on down the line.
But after NATO's Secretary General raced to Washington to talk Trump out of it, and the Russian Foreign Minister strong-armed Secretary of State Marco Rubio to agree to all sorts of preconditions for the Budapest summit, suddenly it was off.
The only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere.
The president U-turning yet again, and not only abandoning the planned meeting, but suddenly even imposing sanctions on Russia for the first time since he returned to power.
Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies. Last week they had almost 8,000 soldiers killed. Many Russians were killed last week. Many Ukrainians were killed last week. We think it's ridiculous and would like to have it end.
There is, as ever, no sign of that happening. And by the way, how come Russia's two largest oil companies were never sanctioned by the Biden administration? That seems like a bit of a miss. In the Middle East this week, Vice President J.D. Vance visited Israel and said he thinks the ceasefire in Gaza is holding better than he had anticipated, but he said he was personally insulted when the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, passed a measure calling for the annexation of the West Bank, a fresh indication of the fragility of the president's 20-point peace plan. Other stories of note this week: President Trump says he will soon launch airstrikes on alleged drugs traffickers in Venezuela, which the Venezuelan government will see as an act of war. And last night, a TV ad produced in Canada but airing in the United States really stuck in Donald Trump's craw.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer.
The provincial government of Ontario using Ronald Reagan's anti-protectionist words to tear Trump's policies apart. The ad being screened in multiple states that rely heavily on business with Ontario led Trump last night to call off all trade negotiations with the national Canadian government.
Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
And just a reminder, if Ontario were to cut power exports to the United States, it would turn the lights off in Michigan, Minnesota and New York City. Imagine being so irked by a TV commercial that you'd put all of that at risk. Speaking of videos that irked people, the President of the United States trafficked in one of those himself last weekend. And before we get to it, let's just go back to his response to those No Kings protests. Up to 7 million people on the streets objecting to his authoritarian rule.
I think it's a joke. I looked at the people. They're not representative of this country. The demonstrations were very small, very ineffective. And the people who were whacked out. When you look at those people, those are not representative of the people of our country.
Mr. President, besides San Francisco...
By the way, I'm not a king. I'm not a king. I work my ass off to make our country great. That's all it is. I'm not a king at all.
So he's not a king, and he wasn't troubled by the protests, and yet, just a matter of hours later, he posted an AI-created video on his social media account. It shows a fighter jet emblazoned with the name King Trump, and the president wearing a crown, and I am not making this up, dropping payloads of human excrement on No Kings protesters below. His supporters call it satire, which itself is pretty satirical. Next, perhaps, they'll tell us the demolition of the East Wing is just a bit of performance art.